As a family attorney, what is the number one question that you get asked?
I have a lot of popular questions,
Mm,
whether the other side has to pay my fees. And I
mm,
always have to tell them in Florida, there is a mechanism in which you could ask the court. You have to ask the court, like you have to present a motion and go to a hearing in order to request those attorney's fees and costs. It's not automatic. So that's the biggest myth is, oh, well, they're just going to pay my fees. There are times where the other side voluntarily pays the other side's fees really because they already know, okay, if I go to court, the judge is gonna require me to pay. Um, but otherwise, it's not automatic. There,
mm,
there's a request, and then you still have to spend money going to that hearing. So sometimes I talk to my client and say, okay, if we go to this hearing on fees, how much is it going to cost you? If we go to mediation, try to resolve the entire case, how much is that going to run you? And we have an estimate. What's more effective? If we have a really complex case where we know it's gonna be a while, then yes, it's worth it to go to the court and ask for those fees and costs because this is gonna be a marathon. As opposed to if we can resolve it at mediation, save those funds and use it for mediation to just be done. And those are things your attorney should be discussing with you. What are your
mm.
options? And really trying to educate you through the process because most people don't know. And if they're not educated about it, I don't feel like they're going to feel comfortable making a decision either way. So, um,
Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another myth. That you have to leave the house. You don't need to leave the house unless there's domestic violence or
Mm,
you want to, but otherwise, just because you file for a divorce does not mean that you need to leave the home. And leaving the home does not mean that you're waiving an interest in the marital residence in the home. So if you do decide to leave, or let's say you have to for safety reasons, you still have an interest. If you acquired the home during the marriage, or let's say you have a non-marital interest. I won't get into the legalese of it, but that doesn't mean you waive anything. You are still good. You can still request that.
right. And do both parties need to sign the divorce?
So that's a good question. And I'll clarify. The divorce decree, like the order saying you're divorced, is from the judge. And so you don't need to ask the other side permission. If you want to file a petition with the court, meaning you want to go forward with and open a case, I'll just use my mediated example. You want to go forward and open a case, go forward. The other side doesn't agree, that's their problem. Okay. If you feel like the marriage is irretrievably broken, and that's a term of art, you have every right to go forward and seek a divorce. Now, just on that other note, you can always dismiss the case. You can even ask the court to pause the proceedings because if you're unsure and you want to try therapy, you do you. Like, by all means, I am totally for it. We've had those cases where my client's like, I want to reconcile. You perfect. I am not judging you. I think that's great if you are able to salvage it. Salvage your marriage if you can. If you cannot, you keep and you proceed. If the other side doesn't want to cooperate, you can get a default on them and you just keep going. You set a hearing in front of the judge and you request your relief. I mean, there's a whole what I see for guilt tripping is like when we go through the parenting app and we see one parent, I'll say parent, you don't have to be married. You did this to us, you did this to our family, you're guilt tripping. And um, that's not fair to the family. Obviously it takes two. Something broke down. And then the blackmail could be that they're holding something against them. So if you proceed in this way during divorce, and I'm going to pull up all these pictures. I have in one specific case where one spouse went into the other one's phone and illicitly took, you know, or somehow got a hold of certain images. And so my client's like, oh my gosh, what if this like the judge sees this? And I'm like, honestly, what's the judge going to do?
Mm,
Adultery is not, I mean, it's a no fault state. So like,
right.
and number one, you guys were separated, but number two, it's a no fault state. So I'm sure that the spouse who was trying to use those images as blackmail for purposes of securing a better, like for purposes of leverage during the divorce,